Hello everyone, hope you're having an awesome day wherever and whenever you're watching this. I'm your host Eamon Hassan and welcome back to another video here at Most Amazing Top 10. Okay, so excluding visiting deceased relatives, graveyards alone are apparently not creepy or scary enough to stop people from thrill seeking at them during odd hours. But also, dead people are not some of the scariest things found in graveyards. That's the point of them even. It just gets a lot worse than that, and honestly, I have nothing else to say, so this is the top 10 scariest things found in graveyards. Starting us off at number 10 is the worker. Now this one is from Redditor Redbird274, who used to work as a groundskeeper at their local cemetery with their best friend back in high school. They found the usual things like stuffed animals on children's graves, flowers, liquor bottles, beer cans, etc. But there were also some weird ones, like Redbird found scribbled notes from a widow on her husband's grave which were all illegible. They found used condoms, which I don't know why that's a thing, but I'm not kink shaming, but I don't get it. One super creepy thing that they found was a plastic drink and wet baby doll that was burnt with what seemed like a blowtorch, and it also had a bunch of big nails hammered into its head. The user actually hung the head of it on their rearview mirror like a tassel, which is also a bit sus in and of itself. But anyway, the worst thing they found was a naked corpse of a girl who had been a student at a neighboring high school. Her arms were at her sides and she had been strangled right there, and whoever killed her had also punched her in the face several times. Her clothes were never found and neither was her killer. The user and their best friend was interrogated several times but to no avail. But either way, wow, just imagine going to work and seeing a corpse like that. I mean, yes, it's a graveyard, there are corpses everywhere, but this is different. Coming in at number 9 are the children. This one's from Jim Watley, who said he went on a ghost tour with his wife a few years ago in St. Augustine, Florida. And this place happens to be one of America's oldest inhabited cities, just, a little fact of the day for you. But anyway, one of the last stops on this ghost tour was an old cemetery where loads of people who had died from the yellow fever outbreak were buried. As the tour guide started telling the couple about the history of the cemetery, Jim saw some movement and he realized there were a bunch of children hiding behind the gravestones and looking over or around them at Jim and his wife. He paid no mind to them and thought maybe they were just kids playing around. But when they left, he complimented the tour guide on his visualizations of the children, and the guide asked him if he had seen them, and he said yes, and my wife did too. But then the tour guide said there was no one in the graveyard but him and the couple, but that this wasn't even the first time people had reported seeing children there. They happened to be in the section reserved for unknown kids who had died in the outbreak. I mean, not really a graveyard list if you don't see some ghosts, right? At number 8 we have the chicken. One cemetery worker went into a shift one day to find a live chicken shackled to a gravestone, and that is literally all they said. That's all they shared. Like, I have many questions for you. How do you even shackle a chicken to a gravestone, and why would you even do that? People were speculating that perhaps it was part of some voodoo or ritualistic practice, but it left everyone reading it pretty dumbfounded. And also, poor chicken, like, what did it even do to deserve that? Filling our number 7 slot is the man. This one's from Logan Browse, who said that during the mid-90s in Santa Fe, when he was about 16 or 17, him and his friends wanted something fun to do, so they started filming stuff. They decided to go to a cemetery near Cerritos Road at 1 AM and film themselves jumping over the fence and touching gravestones. Stupid, but sure, kids will be kids, I guess. The three of them jump the fence and start filming Blair Witch style whilst running, but then all of a sudden they saw someone get up from a grave, at which point the boys lost all confidence and ran back to the car. They jumped over the fence and back into the car, and the person or thing that got up from the grave was also coming towards them, towards the fence. It looked like a dirty man in a white sheet. They thought maybe he was freshly dead. They ended up actually going to the nearest gas station and calling the police. The police laughed and hung up on them when they told them that they had seen a walking corpse. This was before zombies were a big thing in pop culture, so Logan and his two friends were sat at home terrified, when really it was probably just a homeless man sleeping there. Let's be real. Now at number 6 is the sweet potato. I don't know, honestly, I don't make these up. But anyway, this one's from Paul Deso de Holzer hopefully, who said he saw something ridiculously weird. He was in the cemetery where celebrated war hero General Francis Marion was buried because him and a few friends wanted to pay their respects. But on General Marion's tomb, they found a sweet potato. Like literally a sweet potato. And it wasn't just a regular sweet potato. For one, it was hard and firm, meaning that A, it was fresh, and B, it was good for carving. It was carved so elaborately, someone had taken a lot of time to detail it with what looked like folk art or motifs. Paul believes it was part of a Santeria or voodoo spell ritual because it seemed to have symbolic importance. Either way, they didn't move the sweet potato, but just existed alongside of it. Coming in at number 5 is the skull. This one's from Chris Baldwin, who said when he was a boy he used to like playing around the grounds of St. Mellon's Church. He was about 9 or 10 years old when this happened, and it was about 1979 at the time. He said because a lot of the ground was overgrown, it was a great place for hide and seek. So he was hiding at the bottom of the grounds and had just squeezed through some old iron railings on the border of the church. He kicked a rock in the trees, but the kick actually really hurt him, and then when he looked down he realized he hadn't kicked a rock at all but a human skull. He ran for his life. He ran away from the church and found a policeman and told him what had happened. A while later, police were everywhere examining the forest and documenting the area. But it turned out to be a person who had just committed suicide and had been buried there. Because back then, if you had taken your own life, you weren't allowed to be buried within the church's grounds, you had to be buried right outside of them. And that is what Chris found and then kicked. At number 4 is the jar. This one's from Reddit user 16 Bells, who said in her local graveyard there's a gravesite that has a fetus in a jar next to it. These are just so weird, I don't understand. This was posted 4 years ago, but she went on to say the jar's been there since she was a kid, so God knows how many years it's been there for. For years, residents of the town have been told it's a fetus in a jar, but after all these years it no longer looks like one, so it can't really be proved anymore. I mean, unless someone takes it out and investigates it, but no one in the town dares to touch it, and I mean, that's understandable. Either way, I wonder why it was left there. Maybe the gravesite was of a father and the wife had a stillborn and wanted them to be together? Who knows, like that's the only story I could come up with. No clue of any backstory. Let me know what you guys think. Maybe you'll come up with something better. Filling our number 3 slot is The Lady. This one was shared by Lauren Smith, who said when she was about 14 she participated in a living history weekend in Franklin, Tennessee. So everybody got to dress up in cool period clothes and it was pretty lit really. On Saturday night, Lauren and her friends thought it'd be fun to walk around the grounds of one of the largest Confederate cemeteries. It was 3 AM at this point and the group were just laughing and joking when they saw something moving amongst the headstones. It was a woman dressed in all white period clothes. She had her head down but just kept aimlessly walking through the gravestones, not really having a destination in mind. One of the girls in the group said it was probably just her mum playing a prank on them, trying to make them run back to their tents and go to sleep, so the girls paid no mind to the incident. But a few minutes later they headed back to the camp and the girl opened her mum's tent to show it being empty to the other girls, but her mum was very much in there and asleep. There was no way her mum could have gotten back that quickly without at least passing the girls, so that girl that they saw definitely wasn't the mum. When they looked back, the woman was also gone from the cemetery, and Lauren till this day cannot explain what she saw. I mean, was it real? Was it an apparition? A ghost? Not a clue. Not a faintest clue. Now at number 2 is fire. This one's from Shaheen Ibrahim, who said that he once knew a holy man from his community who was visiting a graveyard one day and was paying his respects. A little while later, out of nowhere, a grave combusted. It full on went up in flames. No one was around the grave, there was nothing that could have started it, no flammable liquid or object, no trigger, it just happened like magic. And it wasn't a tiny fire, flames were quote unquote leaping out of it. I mean, I've seen that happen in movies where fire just comes out of nowhere, but real life at a graveyard? How is it possible? Shaheen theorized powers above us were behind it, but the significance behind it is still a cliffhanger. And finally, at number 1 are the footprints. This one's from Jay Arden, who said in his teens him and his sister and friends decided to go to a large cemetery after watching a horror movie. Recipe for disaster right there. But anyway, they knew there was one mausoleum in a local cemetery that had a lot of well-known dark stories about it, so they thought that would be the perfect place to go. Despite it snowing, they made it there, and at this point their windows were pretty foggy and visibility was at an all-time low. And that is the weather forecast. That's what that just sounded like. Jay was the one voted on to check out the mausoleum even though he was the youngest in the car. Pure savagery. But anyway, as he walked towards it, he realized the snow had been pushed back by the door. The door had been opened, yet there was only one set of footprints leaving the crypt. There were no footprints leading into the mausoleum, just one fresh set coming out. But the iron door had a rusty chain on it securing it shut, which meant it had been sealed for quite a long time. So no one knows what the hell came out of the place, perhaps a century-old vampire who thought it was finally time to wake up. Either way, the kids left but couldn't find anyone around the area that may have left those tracks. And that's it for today's video, guys. I'm stunned at how many weird and scary things have happened at graveyards. I mean, I always knew those places are just magnets for supernatural occurrences, but still, it's pretty creepy hearing about it nonetheless. Also, why have I done so much of this in this video? Also, do let me know in the comments if you guys have ever found anything scary in a graveyard. I really hope you haven't, or have just had any interesting graveyard experiences in general, as I'd love to know. As always, I'm Eamon Hassan and I'll see you next time. Bye!